Okay, and welcome to the Conversational Hypnosis Academy. My name is Scott Jansen. Today we're going to be looking at how to master conversational hypnotherapy stories for hypnosis, for coaching, but in a way that's going to bewitch our clients' minds. Now, the most useful thing we're going to be discussing over the next couple of sessions is not only how to use storytelling as a form of therapy, but how to create hypnotic stories that have an intention to help clients overcome issues, problems, and challenges. The most important thing I think about any sort of hypnotic storytelling is the way we're going to learn this is not only how to tell these stories, but how to create the right mindset so you can actually tell these stories on the fly without the use of scripts. But we're lucky enough today to have Jo, who has approached me. Jo is a life coach. We're going to say hello to Jo in a moment. And we're going to be showing her over the next couple of sessions how she can use hypnotic stories in her life coaching business. So thank you, Jo, for coming on board. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So, Jo, just give me a little bit about yourself. We've had a little bit of a chat about why you approached the Academy about our storytelling modules, but tell us a little bit about you. Why do you want to use storytelling, or what's got you involved in this sort of thing?
Well, I'm doing life coaching at the moment, so I'm dealing with various different clients, and the way in which the life coaching is the way of which I've been taught. And I feel that something's missing, and I just need to add a little bit of oomph to my life coaching. And after meeting yourself and looking at the website and stuff, I feel that this would add some extra oomph to it, and the storytelling would be something that would be really easy to add.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. So you touched on some really great points there. With any sort of hypnotic storytelling, the fundamentals of hypnotherapy will tend to come out in your stories. Now, I know you've done a little bit of hypnotherapy training before. You've looked into it at least. The great thing about the storytelling modules, or what we teach with storytelling, you don't have to have a full background in hypnotherapy to make this work. Okay, so what I want to do with today's session is start to tell you a little bit about hypnotic stories, how you can use them, but we're going to start to direct these stories in the way that you can use them for coaching, and also for anyone listening for this, how a hypnotherapist can use this to completely change a client's inner reality, or the way they view their challenges, so they can actually, a therapist can actually use these stories to create change in their clients. So let's touch on the first thing I want to go over with the hypnotic storytelling side of thing. The biggest fundamental rule, and I think the biggest key to tell a quality hypnotic story, is to actually set the mindset. And this is something we're going to be covering and focusing our attention on today. So we dealing with a lot of hypnotherapy trainings, and when I speak to hypnotherapists, I ask them, do you tell stories? And if they do, I usually get a sense and a feel for the stories they tell. Now, one of the big flaws that I hear that are so common inside storytelling is the therapist sounds very mechanical. They sound like they're almost have rehearsed a script or rehearsed this story over and over and over, and it doesn't sound natural anymore. Now, Jo, I would ask you a question. Do you think you're a very good storyteller? Do you think you've told any good stories in your life?
Probably a couple, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it.
Okay, but you've told a couple of stories, correct?
That's correct.
Now, when you're telling a story, what do you find, when you think you're telling a good story, what types of things do you tend to see in the people that you're speaking to? Do you have their attention? Is it they sort of looking around the room, not paying attention? What did you find when you were telling various stories?
When I've told a successful story, one that's been, I don't know, funny or appealing to the crowd, people lean in, they get involved in the story, they keep asking questions about it.
Excellent.
And I know when I've told really bad stories, people just look at you going, what?
Yeah, what sort of a story was that, right? So these are the keys we want to bring into this. We want to bring this naturalness. We want to bring this idea of how do we grab our subject's attention to the extent that we're not trying to. Now, when you were telling these stories, were you just telling a story because it was a fun story and maybe it was an event in your life, or were you trying to do something with that story?
Both. So I've told stories where they've just been for fun, and then I told stories in various presentations and speaking to people. Yeah.
Excellent. So we want to combine these keys together so you come out as natural. Now, I'll always point back to this idea of natural. The reason we want to do it naturally is because we teach conversational hypnotherapy, but this natural approach will stop the client knowing that you're doing something. So if you look at it in the perspective of a hypnotherapy session, the biggest thing we want to avoid as a therapist is putting the client on notice that we're about to start, or putting the client's unconscious mind and conscious mind as well on notice that we're about to do something. So if we can avoid this step, we can bypass critical thinking, which is the conscious mind, which we've discussed before. And if we can bypass this critical thinking, we don't have to worry about a client denying the story or thinking, oh, Joe's starting to do something, I better pay attention, or I'm a little bit nervous, what's this story going to be about, or what is she going to do to me? We want to bypass all these critical thinkings, and with a natural story, we can do this. So let's start from the very beginning and look at the fundamental tools, and I'll get you to write this down as well, fundamental tools for telling a great story. Now, the backbone of all hypnotherapy that I base my practice around, and definitely what we teach our students, is what we call the ABS formula. Have you heard of the ABS formula before?
Oh, don't think so.
Don't think so. So let's look at this. It's just a little acronym. The A stands for attention. The B is for bypass of critical thinking.
Yep.
And the S stands for stimulate an unconscious process. Now, without going into too much detail, essentially this is what a story will do. A story, whether it's good or bad, we're going to show you how to turn it into a hypnotic story, because that's why we're here today, is going to capture someone's attention. Now, if you recall the little stories that you were telling people maybe about an event or the weekend or something like that, did you notice you had people's attention?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, I did.
Now, when you were also telling this story, did you notice that maybe, like you said, people were leaning in or they were asking questions, yeah? So they're becoming involved in the story. So we could say at this point, we're almost bypassing normal thinking because they've forgotten what they were doing for the day or just that portion of their life, and they're involved in your story, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And the S part is stimulation. This is where you continue to tell your story, and the people you're talking to maybe laugh along with you, ask more questions, get involved, or reflect back on when a part of their life was like that as well, and they start to respond to the story, right?
That's correct.
So we've covered this full ABS formula. Now, if we look at ABS inside of hypnotherapy, if it was a model, we have covered everything for someone to be hypnotized. Okay? So what we want to do is learn how to tell a story that will do this ABS formula for us every time. Okay? And I think the most important thing is we want to show you how to create a story from anything. Now, why do you think this would be important? Why do we want to go into this knowing how to, or learning how to tell a story from absolute any event rather than specific events? Why would we want to learn how to do it just from any event instead?
I suppose I know with my life coaching and stuff, you never know what's going to happen until you start talking to people. So if you've got a predefined story, it might not fit into their map of the world.
Perfect. Exactly. So if we go into this with a pre-rehearsed or a predefined story that we think the client wants to hear, it's going to be hit and miss, right? But if we can create a mindset where your mind almost stimulates itself to come up with a story in any circumstance, any context, any scenario, any problem or anything that your client comes up with, it means that you're still bringing the key elements of a hypnotic story and you can take it with you wherever you go. And that'd be useful, right?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Definitely. So there are going to be, a portion of our training together, we're going to look at specific stories that can help clients. But what we want to avoid is me saying, okay, Joe, this story's for this story's for this story's for this. Okay? Because when you think about that, if that was the approach we took, how on earth could I know, or how the earth could you know what type of client's going to come to you until they start to talk to you, right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. You get all sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do definitely as well. So let's start from real basics. We're going to look at this ABS formula in a little bit more context a little bit later, but let's start to set the mindset. Like I said, if we can create the right mindset for you, these stories will not only flow out of you naturally, but they will be so natural, they'll encompass the ABS formula without even having to know how to do it. Okay? So you're not going to sit there and go, okay, I'm at the A part, I'm at the B part, I'm at the S part, because that's not very natural, is it?
No, it's a bit disjointed.
That's right. It's almost like a little dot point that you want to cover. So we want to avoid that at all. So let's start from very scratch. The first exercise we're going to go through is to just get your creative juices flowing. We just want to open up your own unconscious. Now I want to show you how it feels to actually trust your unconscious mind to tell these stories for you. Okay? And usually when I've taught this in the past, a lot of people turn around and say, oh, I don't know if I could do that. Do I trust my unconscious? That's fine for now. But what I want to show you is how to flow with these stories naturally so they come to you naturally. And all you've got to do is just express the ideas that come to mind. Okay, so let's do a little word association game to start off. What we're going to do is I'm going to have you throw a word at me. Let's say you say the word car. So you explain an object, you'll say car. I'll say phone. Then you might say sun. I'll say tree. We're just going to go back and forward to get this idea flowing around in our mind, and we're going to start to expand that as a little exercise. Okay, so do you understand what we're going to do first?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'll start. I'll throw a word. Now, the easiest thing to do right here and to actually master this little exercise, and it's going to be very important for us later, is to be quick with it. It's the first thing that comes to mind. So if you think in your head, what has that got to do with a phone or a flower? We're not at that point yet. You're just going to throw the first thing that comes to your mind at me, and I'll respond like so. Okay, so this is the word association game. So I'll start and then throw your first word at me. So the first word I'll start with is tree.
Water.
Sun.
Moon.
Computer.
Sea.
Fork.
Pink.
Boat.
Silver.
Gold.
Grinder.
Watch.
Pepper.
Microphone.
Speaker.
Excellent. We'll pause right there.
What
Excellent.
about it then?
Excellent. That's fine. So what's important is it's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, it's really simple.
But do you notice how something tends to happen, or something will start to happen inside your mind, is you'll come up with these random words and then we get a little bit stuck at some point.
Yeah.
And this happens every single time. It still happens to myself as well. So what's occurring right here? Like you said, you begin to think about it.
Mm.
Now, where were these items before you thought about it? Did you plan to say any of those things, or did they just come out of nowhere?
They just came out of nowhere.
Excellent. So it's that nowhere, which we could almost say is the unconscious mind, is we want to explore. Okay. Yeah. And the less conscious thinking, or this thinking process that we put into these stories, the better these stories are going to be. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. So let's touch on a couple of things with this as well. Is when you were coming up with these random items, how did you do it? Did you see a item in your mind and just express it, or did you just go from an item that I said, or how did you go about saying those items? What made you pick them?
I just kept seeing little pictures flash up, and I just said it.
Excellent. So you saw the picture in your mind, and then you just said the word, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So what this is the way your unconscious mind processes information.
Okay.
And it's always good to recognize this. And as a matter of fact, I do the same thing. I'll see the picture and I'll just express what I see. Okay. Other people might come along and they might hear something and they'll express that. Or they might express something, then see the picture from the idea they've expressed. Okay. It's very important to recognize how you process information like that, because this is going to be almost your strength for later. Okay. Now, why do you think this is important to understand how you process this information? Why do you think that would be important to know?
Is it something to do with being visual, kinesthetic, auditory?
Yes, absolutely. It can be. Yes.
Yeah.
So someone's very kinesthetic or auditory or whatever the case may be. But something else as well is if you recognize how you process information, it means that when you go to tell a story, you'll use these same processes. Okay. Which is great, which means it'll flow like it just did. But if you go to tell a story and you try and do it another way that doesn't suit you, what do you think is going to happen?
I think you'd struggle a lot to actually do it.
Yes. And we want to avoid this struggle. Yeah, we want to avoid this struggle. We want it to create it naturally. We want to create it to flow. We want to create stories that suit the way that you process information. Okay? Yeah. Now, if I had a different way to process information than you, let's say I would say a word, then see the picture. If I was to show you how to do it my way, how do you think you'd cope with that? I'd
probably struggle a lot trying to comprehend it.
That's right. And if I was this opposite way, like I mentioned, and you tried to tell me how to do it your way, we'd come up against a almost little internal fight with each other. And we don't want that. We want to run these stories and flow these stories and tell these stories the way that best suits you, because then your clients feel it's natural, it's on the fly, and they'll be able to adapt to that story better themselves. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Is there any questions about that little exercise that we did?
Nope.
Nope. Pretty
Yeah.
simple. Excellent. And it's going to be something I'll give you some protocol to follow later in regards to how to practice that and get better at it and whatnot. Okay. So let's expand from this exercise. The exercise is going to be very simple, but we're going to build up to something. What we want to do now is I'm going to throw a word at you. So I'm going to say pencil. And then what you're going to do is quickly in your mind, you're going to see the pencil, or you're going to have the pencil somewhere. I want you to explain what you're doing with this pencil in your mind. Or is someone holding the pencil, or is the pencil in a pencil case, or are you writing on a piece of page with a pencil? Something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Would you like me to go through the process first, and I'll show you what I mean?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Excellent. Not a worry. So I'll get you to throw any random item. I'm going to almost get it in my mind quickly. And let's say you said the word cup. And I'd say, well, I'm sitting on a beach drinking a beer that's in a cup. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm expanding the reality and expanding the frame of this cup instead of just saying the word. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any random item, when you're ready, throw it at me. I'll expand it. I'll give you almost a little scene, I guess we could say, of what's occurring with this item. Okay, so when you're ready.
Strawberry.
Strawberries. So I'm walking along a field and I'm picking strawberries and putting them into a basket.
Okay.
Pretty simple?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's give this a go with yourself. So let's say car.
I'm driving along in my brand new car.
Excellent. So throw another one at me.
Spade.
Spade. So I'm outside, I'm digging in a sandpit, and I'm actually a little boy. Bit weird, right?
Yeah.
Almost a little regression on the spot. So let's throw another one at you. Butterfly.
I'm running along the fields trying to catch butterflies in my net.
Excellent. Let's do one more round. Very nice one, by the way. So let's do one more round. Throw one more at me.
Cat.
Cat. So I'm looking at a cat. It's nighttime, and it's walking along the wall staring at me with its tail in the air.
Okay.
So last one will be for you. Let's try and think of something tricky. Merry-go-round.
I'm in the park watching the children playing on the merry-go-round.
Excellent. Great job. So how was that? Pretty simple?
Yeah.
So what's starting to occur right here? The item I've given you, let's say that you use the last of the merry-go-round, you've given me a almost little scene that was created around that item, correct?
Yeah.
Now, how did that work for you? Did you see the scene and just express it to me? Or did you think of the merry-go-round and the scene got created? How do you think it worked for you?
I saw the merry-go-round and the scene expanded around it.
Excellent. So this is key. So what do you think's occurring right here? So this scene has been expanded around this item. What's occurring right here? What processes do you think are beginning to be used right now?
I suppose my unconscious mind is filling in the pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We could almost look at this as a small movie. Okay,
Yeah.
We've got a centered item or an item that will relay some associations to it or whatnot, and then we're allowing the unconscious mind to set the scene for us. Okay, and it's quick. It takes 1 or 2 seconds. And did you see how quickly those extra items flashed in front of your mind when I gave you that